Hi guys, so I've been getting a lot of questions on scale playing and string bending recently, so I thought I would use this as an opportunity to combine the two. This is where we're going to take the minor pentatonic scale and add string bending. So this should be the ideal thing to cover if you've just got started maybe playing the minor pentatonic scale and learning a few very easy solos, but you want to make that transition into improvisation and a bit more freedom in the lead guitar instrument and joining the dots between a couple of different concepts. If you haven't covered the minor pentatonic scale at all, there's another video on my channel as part of my beginner's course, but let's get straight in for the close-up and I'll show you what we're doing. Okay guys, so in this example I'm using the A minor pentatonic scale, but you can use this anywhere. All it means is when I'm demoing it, we are playing the A minor pentatonic scale. So if we were playing the whole thing, my first finger would be at 5th fret. There's the open string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to play the first octave just to get us up to this note, which is the octave of the A note at 5th fret. So this is 7th fret. This is the note I need you to find, the 7th fret of the 4th string. And I need you to put your 3rd finger on this note, and I need you to know that it is the octave, so it is the higher A note to the lowest A that we started on. That's an A, and this is also an A. Actually the same note, just one is low and one is high. And just as a warm-up, we're going to play the higher notes, all the higher notes in this position from this note. So as an example, that's what I'd like you to do just as a warm-up, and we're going to play it together. Ready? In 2, 3, 4. Okay, now what I want you to notice is that I played all of those with my 3rd finger. Now that is not essential, but it's a really good option for many people. We'll be covering a couple of options with this in a second. If you need more info on this exact scale that I'm playing here and how to do what I've just done, click here for that video on the minor pentatonic scale. That is the precursor to this lesson. So, we don't really, when we're playing this scale shape or when we're playing lead guitar based in this position, we do not bend just any note. And we certainly don't bend them all the same. We treat this, the notes we play with our 1st finger differently to how we play the notes with our 3rd finger. And what we're commonly going to do is bend the notes we play with the 3rd finger on the thinnest 3 strings only. So this note, so we go, so this note, 1, 2, and 3, we're commonly going to bend those notes up by what we call a whole tone or a whole step, or even by 2 frets. So when we bend this note up, like this, we need to bend it up to the pitch of the note 2 frets higher up the fretboard. So 1, 2. That's what we're looking for pitch-wise. Now to be able to do that, there's a couple of things we want to do. To bend a string with our 3rd finger, like this, we need to hook our thumb over the top of the fretboard. We're going to almost clamp under the fretboard here with our 1st finger and then bend our fingers at the knuckle to get this kind of angle. And the way that we're going to bend it, the motion we're going to use is like this. There is a pivot point. So important. And really what happens is the wrist moves from this kind of vertical position into a horizontal. So it moves like this. It's a movement with the wrist to do string bends with the 3rd finger. So thumb over the top, pivot point here. So we're gripping just enough here. So not gripping tight, but you know, we're not letting it slip or anything. And the 3rd finger is in the correct position, which would be here for the note that we're going to play. And we need to support our bends. You can't just push up with our 3rd finger like this we need to support it with at least the middle finger. And that is how we'd get the note up to the pitch that we're wanting it to. When people commonly try these bends for the first time, they kind of get this sort of sound, and we want to get it right up to that pitch, to that sound, to that tone. Now, visually, I think it really helps to know that a 2-fret bend, like that, actually almost goes, not just one, but almost to the next string. So that would be hitting one string, and then we physically almost touch the next one, but not quite. That does change slightly when we go down a string, but I think it's good to have that slightly visual cue. So that's what we want to do first of all, supporting with the middle finger and bending up to that pitch. After that, straight away, I really advise, just to get some movement in your fingers and to show you how this bend is used from day one, I think it's really important to start from this octave, play those 3 notes of the minor pentatonic, and then bend up. That will be example 1, which is tabbed out for you. Each step in this video is tabbed out on the website. The link is just here, so you can print it out in front of you, and so that you can refer back to it at a later date. That is example 1, just like that. Okay, that's the first example of using a bend with some scale notes. As I've covered before, the next notes we want to bend, certainly if we're just covering the 3rd finger, is here and here. Now we do have the option, many of you will have learned this scale by playing these notes at the 8th fret with the little finger, like this. And it is totally fine to use the little finger to bend up those notes. So to do this one, to use the little finger. But the only way you're going to be able to do that is, one, frankly, be on an electric guitar. You won't be able to do a lot of these bends on acoustic because the strings may be too thick, especially if you're a beginner. But you have to support your bend. You have to support it with the 2 or even all the fingers all in a line pushing up at the same point. And so we have the little finger down, and then the 3rd finger that is down next to it, the middle finger, and even if you want the 1st finger as well, especially if you're new at this, just to get them all used to pushing up together. And look at my wrist popping up at the back of the fretboard when I push up. The fingers do not push up like this. That is not what we want to do. We don't want to push up with your fingers. Your fingers are remarkably still, and it's a wrist motion, and that wrist, look at it, it goes up, and then everything else happens in the background. It's a really weird motion when you first learn it, and there's just a kind of sweet spot that you need to get into, or a feel that is developed by doing it. If it's too weird or you don't like doing it with the little finger, we can do all of them with the 3rd finger. That is more a technique that Eric Clapton employed, and it is super useful. You know, the only real thing you need to do is make sure your fingers are on an angle to be able to make that stretch. It's great to be able to do some kind of, you know, kind of flick offs and then into a bend. That can be really handy. But I'm just showing you the options that we have where you can do this with your little finger as well, but you have to support it. And I showed you the little finger in the beginner's course example, more like that. So if we were doing the full exercise with that motion, that is is what I played at the start of this video. So you need to figure out now and have a little play just at bending this note and this note. So this is the 8th fret on the thinnest 2 strings, and figure out whether you're going to do it with your 3rd finger or the little finger. And whichever one of those 2 you employ, you want to make sure you're supporting it with at least the adjacent finger, the one right next to it. And if not, I really recommend, especially as a beginner, get used to doing it with all 4 fingers. Get all that support, get your hand working together, and it's only later on we'll need to keep that 1st finger possibly here to do some cooler stuff. So I have a little practice now. Bending up. Remember with this one, it's a 2 fret bend. So it would sound like that. So you're really listening for the pitch that you're bending up to, and then developing a feel just to hit that spot every time. And what, as I say, a lot of people do commonly is they kind of default to doing only a 1 fret bend. So every time you play this, you know, the bends aren't getting high enough. You need to develop this first. Get them right up there, okay? And once you've got the feel for that, which can, you know, take a little time, maybe you'll get it in a couple of minutes, maybe it will take a few days, or you know, a little bit of practice this week to just little and often come back to it and try and see if you can get it. You know, can you get them right up there and really listening to the pitch of them? Then we want to integrate it with the full thing. So we basically play this scale, just the higher notes, but we're going to add the bend on top of that. And again, the tab is up here, so if you want to just follow that, it is note for note. But just to get the concept of what's happening, you play the note that you're going to bend, and then we add the bend, and then you just carry on with the next note of the scale. So that is definitely the thing to add. Let's play that together as one of the last things that we do. Ready? Play with me in 2, 3, 4. Bend. If that was too fast for you, then you need to practice just the minor pentatonic scale on its own using this video until it's a little bit more down. And if the bends were still a little tricky, one thing I just thought of then is make sure that you're really underneath the string and you're just kind of pushing up. I think too many beginners kind of press into the string, and then they're pushing this way and this way as well. And it's remarkable how little you have to press down, and if you just focus on pushing up, you kind of get all the strings together. It really holds. And we do push all the strings up, kind of covering them all, but we're only going to hear the thinnest one. So if all the strings are bunching up together, that's okay. What you don't want to happen is the other strings coming kind of over your nail like this, if you could see that. That happens with a few people when I teach them one-to-one, and you do want to just scrunch them up together. And my final point is just to remind you to support your bends. Keep your fingers on an angle by having this clamping point with the thumb and here. Support your bends and your bending mainly with the wrists. And if you're doing all those things, this exercise should start to click for you. And then any solos that you then go for will all start to flow a little bit more from your fingers. I think the only other note that we would bend here commonly in any kind of solo is actually this one. So moving the first finger note, the second note that we play in the final part of the tab, we bend that down ever so slightly. And then ending there with a little bit of vibrato. And that shows you absolutely everything I did right at the start of this video in the demo. And that's one way you can add bends to your scale playing. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and you can check out more of my videos by clicking the links on the screen now.